Broadcasting from the Bayou State and all around the Gulf Coast and streaming nationwide. This is The C.L. Bryant Show.
Good evening, everybody, and welcome to The C.L. Bryant Show. I am C.L. Bryant, and we are streaming nationwide throughout the fruited plains of the greatest nation on the face of the earth, the greatest success story the world has ever known, and that is America. We are domiciled here at our flagship station in the Town Square Media Building in my hometown of Shreveport, Louisiana, Shreveport and Bossier. And I want to welcome all of you folks in Wilmington, North Carolina, along with our people in southern Arkansas and East Texas for coming along with us on this journey. My goodness, it is a huge show day today. There's just so much to talk to. Alan West is coming up with me. Our good buddy Alan West is coming up in the next segment. And then we just have a lot to talk about. You and I. We got a lot to talk about. I want to bring you up to speed on some things. Just got back from Philadelphia, PA over the weekend, and I tell you what, there is political racketeering. Maybe it's going on everywhere, and sometimes I really think that we actually hire people unbeknownst that they want to be in the rackets. And from hearing from some of the things going on there in the Bucks County area in PA, it sure sounds like they have a fantastic racket going on there. But I'm sure wherever you're listening to the show throughout the fruited plains of the United States, you may have similar stories yourself. I know that we have them here in Louisiana. So the earth is becoming a skillet, according to the people who were marching on Science Day. That's what they've called it now. It's no longer climate change. They're no longer talking about global warming. They've dropped all of that. It's just now March for Science, which means that if you are against science, well, you might be against climate change, and you have good reason. You can present a good argument. You might be against global warming, man-made global warming, and you may be against that. You have a good argument as far as that's concerned. But what Neanderthal, what idiot could be against science? Well, it just depends on the theory, and depends on if that theory's been proven, because that's all science is proven theories over a period of time. But progressive liberals, they marched in the streets, April 22nd. They were doing that. I personally believe, just give you my personal belief, that it is the height of arrogance to think that it's climate change or the warming of the earth becoming a skillet, as they would want you to believe, is man-made. I personally believe, this is my opinion, and it's my belief system, that if the Creator, and I do believe in a Creator God, and if the Creator has numbered the hairs on your head, and if He knows the length of your days, then He would have to be, or you would have to assign to Him a certain stupidity in not being aware that we could destroy the earth that He created. And I believe there are built-in things that He has put here that it's just inherently we can't destroy the earth. We may destroy a particular environment that we live in that may kill us, but the earth will repair itself. And so I don't think that man-made climate change or global warming or any of that, or man-made science for that matter, is anything that's going to, of our own doing, undo the work of the Creator God. I just don't believe that. We do have capabilities as human beings of being incredibly careless. That is absolutely true. Incredibly careless. But it's always amazed me that the very thing that can kill us actually causes the things around us, like plants, to thrive. The stuff that we exhale, it causes plants to thrive. And we exhale much, much more of that toxin than we inhale oxygen. So I just believe that there's a genius in the creation of it all that you and I would be absolutely arrogant to believe that we have any type of control over the weather. iPhones, yeah, we have control over destroying Siri. We have control over those things that we have the brain capacity given to us by our Creator to create. We can destroy our own creations, but I don't think we have the capacity to destroy His creation. And so, anyway, that's my soapbox on that for now. We'll maybe get back to it a little bit later on. I'll take your calls later on the show, 320-5335, 318-320-5335. 100 days is approaching. Friday will mark 100 days of the Trump administration. Some say that his honeymoon will be over, but quite frankly, folks, I never saw the honeymoon part of it from the very beginning. The media has been absolutely up in arms the entire time that he has been running for president, and certainly since he has become president. But I can tell you this, in the short time that I have in this block before Alan West will join me in the next block, we're going to talk about something new that he has written. I can tell you this, in the first 100 days, the first 96 days, I think it is now, that he has been president, of course, we have withdrawn from the Trans-Pacific Partnership trade deal. The federal hiring freeze will be going into effect. He's given a green light for the Keystone XL pipeline and the Dakota pipeline. He's authorized border wall to be built and the rebuilding of our military. Immigration, he has gone after that, but of course that has been attacked in the courts. He has tried to dismantle. He is in the process of dismantling Obamacare. No legislation on that yet. And, of course, he has gotten the seat of former Judge Antonin Scalia filled with Justice, now Neil Gorsuch. He's been busy, and he's still busy. First 100 days, first 96, headed for 100. I'm CL. Be back in a minute with Alan West. Just a minute. CL back with you on this Monday here in the jeweled cities of the Arklatex, Shreveport and Bossier City, my hometown. It is I, your native son, streaming nationwide throughout the fruited plains of the greatest nation on the face of the earth, the greatest success story the world has ever known, and that is America. Joining me now is a friend of the show, a friend of mine, and a native son of yours. He has worn our uniform proudly, and we are proud of him. That is none other than Lieutenant Colonel Alan West. Welcome back to the C.L. Bryant Show. How are you, man?
I'm doing very well, Pastor. It's always a pleasure to be with you.
Great to have you on with me at any time, Colonel West. Now, Alan, it appears that you had stated this over the week. You have a new writing out that you speak in regard to student mobs killing speech, acting like terrorists, and you state that there is a contradiction in the way that they are speaking and the way that they are handling themselves. Tell us about the contradiction in their actions that you have observed.
Well, I think it's very interesting that first of all, you have individuals on college campuses that are going around having with their faces covered. You know, it's no different from the enemy that I face over in Iraq, Afghanistan, and what have you. We should not allow this to be occurring in our United States of America, definitely on our college campuses. But the biggest hypocrisy is that these are the young people who are out here talking about how they're going to end fascism and stop fascism. And the whole thing that they're doing is preventing people from having their right to free speech or their right to assemble or anyone else's right to, petition their government for redress of their grievances. So I just think that these young people are very confused in what they're doing. And it comes back to something that I think that is really the mantra of this progressive socialist party that we used to call the Democrat Party, is that the only way that they can advance their ideas or their principles or their philosophy is coercion and intimidation. And I think we see that playing out.
Absolutely. And, you and I both frequent these college campuses, and I have found that maybe posing couching whatever I'm about to say in a question to them and creating dialogue most of the time helps. But you can speak to this, I know, proficiently, because I have noted, Colonel West, that many of them are so brainwashed that if you present them with a fact, that is simply not acceptable because it is against whatever it is their progressive liberal professor has brainwashed them into believing. So how do we approach this? It's a very difficult thing to approach a kid who is a Mooney, who is loony, and his eyes are glazed over. How do we do this?
Well, it's very interesting you bring that up. Recently, just last week I spoke at the University of California, Santa Barbara, which is a very liberal campus, and there was no disruption or anything, but of course they were tearing down the signs and what have you. But I brought this nice little pamphlet that was written, an essay by a French economist and journalist, Frederick Bastiat, and it was called The Law. And I held it up, and of course there were some students there that you could tell were there to see what you were going to say. And I asked how many of these students that were there in attendance had ever had any professor in political science, economics, or anything introduce this essay by Bastiat and have it as an open discussion. And, of course, their eyes glazed over, and as you said, and I read some of the quotes from it, and I told them this was written back in the mid-1800s, and some of the things that Bastiat talked about are, evident today. But I think the most important thing is that we have to go on these campuses. We have to challenge the liberal progressive dogma that is being instructed there. And, it was very funny recently. I think you had a state senator out in California that said that, there are no such things as facts. That's just a figment of, white supremacy. So, again, they're going to reach and always go back to the identity politics, go back to the racist argument, or what have you. But as far as I know, 2 + 2 still equals 4. So there is some objective truth that still exists in the world.
Yes, indeed, there is. Now, as far as us engaging this, I am and other subjects. You and I believe, Alan, we're both sons of the South. We've seen evolutions that have gone on in the South. You're from Atlanta. I'm from Shreveport, Louisiana, and we have seen certain things over a period of time simply because we're beginning to mature now. But there seemed to be a resurgence of the no country and certainly no campus for white men. I noticed that there you cite something there in your writing that states no campus for white men. It is the white man in this situation a scapegoat for something that maybe should have vanished 50, 40, 50 years ago. How do you speak to that?
Well, look, it's very simple. I had a young black student that came up to me after the presentation was over. Obviously, he was afraid to ask this question in front of everyone. He was from Mississippi, and here he is out at the University of California, Santa Barbara, which sits on the Pacific Ocean. I mean, it sits right there on the coast. And he started talking to me about slavery, and I just said, "Time out. I mean, why are you going back and bringing up something that has had no effect on you, has no effect on me? Look at where I am. Look at what I've been able to achieve. And, this country is about equality of opportunity. And the things that you have been able to do, there are people in Africa, there are people in many black nations that would not be able to, have these things and have these opportunities and have these abilities. So I think that what you continue to see is, you're right, this scapegoat, this going back to the identity politics, this going back to this reverse racism, that I think is just failing. It really is, CL. I just see that as a last-ditch effort of the left to, go back and once again stir up this whole thing about, entitlements and how people have been kept down, when the only thing that keeps you down in the United States of America now is your own lack of incentive, lack of drive, and lack of determination.
Folks, we're on with Lieutenant Colonel Allen West, who is a warrior for the Republic and has been for many years. And he's not only that, he's been a warrior for our nation. And I want to bring Alan, if you can stay with me through the break, I certainly want to bring you back. I want to talk about what's going on in Paris and the terrorist attacks that have gone on there and get your insight into the presidential election there. Lieutenant Colonel Allen West is my guest. I'm CL. We'll be back in just a couple of minutes. Don't go anywhere. CL, back with you on this Monday here in the jeweled cities of the Arklatex, Shreveport, and Bossier City. As I, your native son, I am on with another son of our nation, beloved nation, America. That is Lieutenant Colonel Alan Bernard West, Executive Director and Vice Chairman of National Center for Policy Analysis, former congressman from Florida, now residing in Texas. And hey, by the way, folks, if you're in Atlanta, or you might want to schedule a trip to Atlanta, April 27th through the 30th, NRA convention will be taking place there in Alan's hometown, Atlanta, Georgia, the 146th NRA annual meeting. Alan will be speaking. The president will be showing up as well. Alan, congrats on that and being a member of an organization I truly love and a member myself, the NRA. Tell us, first of all, before we get into the Paris discussion, about how we may get a hold of you and your thoughts, and a little bit about the center, the National Center for Policy Analysis.
Yeah, the National Center for Policy Analysis has been around for 34 years. We are a conservative free market policy center here in Dallas. We focus on economic growth, tax policy, health care, entitlement reform, national security policy. And you can follow us at ncpa.org. And if you want to know my personal thoughts, perspectives, and insights, go to alanbwest.com. And thanks for outing me on my middle name.
Well, next time I see you, we'll talk. But
Good. Yeah, just do push-ups.
But God bless you, man, for everything that you do. Now, there is, of course, an election, a presidential election, in 14 days, I do believe, in Paris, in France, and it looks as though you have a matchup between what they would call a conservative in the vein of, not necessarily vein of Trump, but also a socialist running against each other. It appears that this is going to be a classic French free-for-all. How are you seeing that shaping up?
No, it's very interesting. It's going to be hard to predict. A lot of people didn't think that the Brits would exit the European Union, the zone, and they did. A lot of folks didn't think Donald Trump could win, and he did. It's going to be an interesting challenge there for the French, because you do have this establishment socialist who says that he's for cutting corporate taxes and things of this nature, but his association with the current President Hollande indicates something else. And then you have someone that is very much so like a Donald Trump figure from the outside, a populist that wants to remove remove France from the Eurozone, and also be tougher on immigration policy. I don't know if the French people have had enough pain when you think about the terrorist attacks that they have suffered through, going all the way back to Charlie Hebdo to the one that just happened last week, that they are ready to do something drastically different. We saw that in Holland. Geert Wilders was not successful there, even though everything seemed to trend to his point, but the people in Holland just were not ready to go, I guess center or more so to the right. So it will be interesting to see if we have another terrorist attack in France. It'll be interesting to see if, the coalitions start to bring themselves around, because you've had some of those established party members that were rejected and rebuked. Where do they send their supporters? So that's what I think you'll have to look for, is where is the coalition going to start coming in?
Alan, when we look at this election shaping up there in France, we see Marine Le Pen, who is the, I guess we can say conservative by French standards, in this race. Now, she is against the immigration. She wants to cut that off, and she's against the overrunning of Islam there in France as well. I believe that the French, you use this phrase, that they have maybe experienced enough pain. Is it pain that people, citizens, have to experience? And we may be experiencing that here in our country. Is the pain going to drive us to actually doing something, in your opinion?
Well, that's the problem, because when you look at the news cycles that we have here in the United States of America, and I'm sure globally, it goes from about 24 to to maybe 72 hours. So when you have a terrorist attack out at San Bernardino, the president comes out and talks about gun control. When you have another one in Orlando, the president talks about gun control. You have one in Fort Hood, Texas, and it's all about workplace violence. You have a terrorist attack in Boston that the Russians had told us about, the Tsarnaev brothers, and the next thing you know, one of the assailants is on the cover of the Rolling Stone. So, have the French people remember what happened there. Like I say, going back to Charlie Hebdo, the soccer stadium and the nightclub attack, and then the most recent one, is just the same as how many of our young people in America remember 9/11 and understand what happened there. So I don't know if they are willing to say we've got to stop this, we've got to make a stand. President Hollande said after the last major attack that this was about a war, it's a declaration of war, but yet we still have ISIS that exists, and we still have those open borders in the Eurozone. So this will be very interesting to see what happens, if the French people will stand up or if the French people will continue on with the status quo.
Alan, I have about a minute and a half, but I have to get your opinion on this topic. Both of us launched into the spotlight, the national spotlight, about 8-9 years ago. Now, over this topic, Obamacare, do we get it? Do the Republicans get this right this time around, in your estimation? How is that shaping out?
Well, I got to tell you, it's absolutely appalling to me that they would craft something in the speaker's office and try to just ram it down people's throats. They have to get it right, CL, or else they'll lose the majority in 2018. They cannot afford to have Americans see insurance premiums continue to rise. But they got to start from zero. You need to outright repeal the Patient Protection Affordable Care Act. You got to address the issue of the working poor. You got to address the issue of pre-existing conditions. And you got to have those qualitative measures, such as what did we do about portability? What did we do about reducing those mandated coverages that you have to have? And also, how do we allow people to have better competition in the insurance market? So I think they need to be very specific and not try to damn some big comprehensive bill, and it's got to be marketed and communicated very well.
I want to thank you, my good friend, for being on with me. Folks, this is retired Lieutenant Colonel Alan West, Executive Director and Vice Chairman of National Center for Policy Analysis there in Dallas, Texas. Always my privilege and honor to be on with you. I'll see you on the trail real soon. God bless and keep you, man. I'll talk to you soon.
Got it. Thanks so much. Bye-bye.
Bye. I'll be back in just a couple of minutes. Don't go anywhere. I'm CL.
Broadcasting from the Bayou State and all around the Gulf Coast and streaming nationwide. This is the C.L. Bryant Show.
All right, folks, I am back. We were on with Lieutenant Colonel Alan West, my good buddy. We're going back, since we started out here about 8 years ago. 7 years. It'll be 8 years. It'll be 8 years this year, back in 2009. And as any of you know anything about Lieutenant Colonel West, great patriot, first of all, great service to our nation that he has performed not only in uniform but also in the United States House of Representatives. And he can tell you firsthand that there is, in fact, a racket that many times political bosses in various cities, states, the power that they have, many times usurps the power that you should have as the citizens who send them to office. And I want to cite this because I was in Philadelphia over the weekend talking to a group of grassroots people. And let me tell you something. There was a statement that they made, and I want you to hear what I'm saying, because there was a statement that they made about doing something in their city as far as electing people from among themselves that was troubling to me. It should be troubling to you. When I ask why is it they're complaining so much about their elected officials, when I ask why not put one of you up, they said these words: they will not let us, meaning the public officials who were elected to office would not let them put anyone up because they have the mechanism in place that blocks them from doing that. These are citizens, voting citizens, who have this type of mentality that the process has gotten so far away from them that they have to be allowed as citizens of the republic to actually have one of their own put up to represent them. The question is, are not the people that they have in office supposedly doing that job of representing them? Evidently not. And when you see the condition of our nation and the things that are absolutely running amok, you have to understand that when I talk about a new attitude of law and order that has to take place in this country in order for us to survive, you not only see it on the streets, I'm talking about in violence and gang violence and shootings and all of this type of thing, but you also see that in your local politics. There has to be restored to local, state, and of course national politics law and order. It is off the rails. It even bleeds into just everyday life. Jay, get that clip ready for me if you would, my good friend. I want to play you something that is also a sign of the times. It's a sign of the times. In fact, I just flew this airline just this weekend, in and out. But I want you to hear this. Jay, play that. Yeah. Listen to this. This is a mother crying. Now hear this.
Hey, bud. Hey, bud. You do that to me and I'll knock you flat.
You stay out of this. Come on, Tony.
You get the hell up. Get the hell up.
Come on.
You try that with a man, I'll knock you out, boy. I'll knock you silly.
Right back.
Yeah. Go with us where we're going. Come on.
Mommy, sit down.
You don't know what the story is.
We want to
I don't care what the story is. No one's hurt a baby. It was not an accident. You keep looking at me and it shows me it's what you did to that lady.
Keep it quiet.
Yeah, I can see exactly what you did. Maybe you'll get videotaped too and get all over the news.
Now, folks, let me tell you something. The woman that was crying, and I have seen them attempt to get on the plane. Some of them are depending on the size of the plane. If you fly often, you know that the overhead is sometimes not large enough to accommodate a stroller. Okay, that's fine. Understood. Evidently, this overhead in this plane was not large enough to accommodate this lady's stroller with her baby. But what preceded this brouhaha, what preceded all of this, was an employee of American Airlines who grabbed this woman's baby stroller, almost hitting the baby in the process, and being absolutely belligerent with a paying customer. Now, the same thing happened a little bit ago on, I think it was United Airline, and them dragging off a paid customer in a fashion that I'm sure is going to make him, comfortable for the rest of his life, and rightly so. Now, I am all for, as you know, obeying lawful directives from people in authority. All for that. But there is a line where the people in authority overstep their authority and then become physically abusive to folks who are paying customers. I said all that to say this. Citizens of your city, citizens of your state, of our nation, we are the paying customers. Are you hearing me? And the people who we hire, whether you vote for them or not, they get the job. And then they go to work for you, whether or not their philosophy on government is the same as yours or not, but they're hired. The same way as when you buy an airline ticket, the people who work there evidently are not abiding by the old adage, the customer is always right. And QSC, I think that's the formula for McDonald's. In fact, I know it is. Years and years and years ago, I was a manager at a McDonald's. In fact, the one right there online. I used to manage that store many years ago. And QSC, quality, service, courtesy. That's what it was all about. It may not have been better times back in the early 70s or mid 70s, late 70s actually, when I was managing that store. But I think we were better people. We're headed somewhere that's not good. And we need to think about where it'll take us. I'll be back. We'll talk more. CL, back with you on this Monday. Glad you made it through the weekend. Evidently, if you're hearing me, you did. And I certainly thank God that we are here together on this journey. Great American journey it is. And folks, I do believe if we handle it right and if we continue to trust the wisdom of the Creator, we will, in fact, not only save the Republic, but become the people that we have been destined to be by the founding documents that were, in fact, put together for a people who were responsible for their own actions. That's what it takes. That's what it takes. That's what it takes. I'll take your phone calls at 318-320-5335. 318-320-5335 is the number to call if you want to speak to me today. Jay, I think we'll go to Tim. Tim, thank you for listening. Thank you for calling. What's on your mind?
Haven't talked to you in a while, CL. Thank you for what you do.
Thank you.
But you were talking about the earth healing itself. When I grew up in Michigan, the Saginaw River was so polluted by the city and by GM and by Dow Chemical that there was no decent fish in the river.
Right.
The river wouldn't freeze over in the coldest part of winter. And they stopped doing that. In the 60s, they started cleaning that thing up, and by the 80s, you could catch real good fish through the ice there in the winter time.
Yeah. You know what, Tim? You're right. We have the capacity to mess stuff up. There's no question about it. And we have the capacity to clean it up. But this was what I was saying. I was saying as far as us killing ourselves, I believe we can do that too. We can kill ourselves by polluting the very environment that we live in. I went into a house one time, Tim, that was so toxic with bug spray that my head began to hurt. And I know that if I'd stayed in there any longer, I was really going to be sick. I didn't know how the people who live there could really stand that. But I know that itself is man-made. But as far as us destroying the planet and actually affecting the climate of our planet, I personally don't believe that is possible. Otherwise, we would be saying that the creator of our planet did not know just how stupid we could be. And I think he does. I think he knows exactly how stupid we can be. We can kill ourselves, but I don't think we're able to kill his creation. Let me ask you this. When that thing didn't freeze over, when your river up there your Saginaw didn't freeze over, it was like antifreeze being on the top of it, right?
There was just no ice. The water just wouldn't freeze.
Wow. Now that's polluted, dude. You said that was Dow Chemical? Dow Chemical was responsible?
Dow Chemical was in Midland, and they got a Chippewassee River. They had four rivers that came together north of Saginaw at a place called Greenpoint. And every one of those rivers were polluted. And the city of Saginaw used to dump raw sewage into the Saginaw River.
Wow.
But they stopped all that, and they cleaned it all up, and I mean, you catch some real nice fish.
And so now you feel safe. You feel safe now. How many years did that take?
Well, they started their very serious efforts in the 60s, and by the 80s, it was in pretty darn good shape.
So in less than 20, 25 years, the situation had been healed so that you could catch fish in that river. Fish actually live there now. You can actually fish the river now. Is that right?
Oh, absolutely. But you think you can go another step further and look at Hiroshima and Nagasaki.
Yeah, you're absolutely right.
I've been to both those cities when I was in the Air Force. A remarkable recovery from probably the meanest trauma that was ever enforced on the face of this earth.
Tim, you absolutely proved the point that I'm making. We have the capacity to destroy it, but it will heal itself. In fact, Hiroshima is one of the most beautiful places on earth right now.
It is.
And it was absolutely nuked. Folks, when we talk about nuking something, we nuked it and Nagasaki. Tim, right. I want to thank you for your call. God bless. God keep you.
The Lord loves us, and He's gonna go on in spite of our foolishness.
Absolutely right. Thank you so much.
Well.
Yes, sir. And Tim, I want to thank you for your service to our nation there in the Air Force. 320-5335, 318-320-5335 is the number to call. Be very happy to talk to anyone who want to speak to me tonight on any topic that you want to bring up. I'm sure we can bat it around. I'll do my best to hang in there with you. Now, today, for the very first time since he left office 96 days ago, President Obama held a meeting at the University of Chicago, and he was talking about community organizing. We know where that's going to go. I'm going to talk to you a little bit about that later on in the show. Jay, I think I'll go to Joe. Joe, thank you for listening. Thank you for calling. What's on your mind?
CL, climate change is just a scheme that liberals cooked up to control our lives. All it is. Everything, they want to create a government agency, the Climate Change Agency, to they'll siphon trillions of dollars from taxpayers, and everything to control what we do.
You know what, Joe? I think you're right. I think it's the biggest scam that has ever been played on the American public. I think Al Gore is the ringmaster in all that. He's made billions. It's literally $1 billion off of this scam. It is a Ponzi scheme, man. It really is. And I see this now as something that, and I'm going to talk a little bit about it in this next block, about bringing about regulations. And I think, Joe, that there is a war that is going to that is already being initiated against poor folks. And I'll tell you folks right. Joe, thank you so much for listening. Thank you for your call, for calling in. He's right. He's right. It is a scheme. It is a scam. And it is something that is being taught and had been taught as religion to your children in schools. A part of the rave, a part of the angst that our college kids are having against conservative thought and principles on college campuses do have also to do is in connection with this idea of those of us who are deniers of man-made climate change. I agree with Joe Bastardi. In fact, Michelle, we got to get Joe Bastardi on the show this week. Let's get Joe Bastardi on the show this week. I agree with Joe Bastardi that the climate is in fact changing, but it is not anything that hasn't happened in a cyclical way since the beginning of the change in climate. And I guess that's from the beginning of the earth. It's always changed. 4 seasons. I'm CL. We'll be back. I'm going to have to do this because I got several calls about the American Airlines fiasco that happened there with the woman in the stroller. And I'm gonna narrate this for you as we set this up because this is a trend. And we were talking a little bit earlier. Jay and I was talking a little bit earlier about this, and we were saying this thing may have been going on for years. But now that we have the iPhone and everything's captured on iPhone, people just start running their iPhone and capture things that probably have been going on for years, mistreatment of people for years. But now you have it. I want to replay this clip, and I'm going to up to a point where one of the male passengers on the plane is fed up with the way this is being handled. And he then gets up to put his 2 cents in on behalf of the woman. Jay, hit it. Right here. You can hear her crying. And the male passenger is beginning to intervene, asking what's the guy's name, the employee.
Hey, bud. You do that to me and I'll knock you flat.
You stay out of this. Come on, Tony. Right.
You get the hell up. Get the hell up.
Come on. Bring it
You
on.
try that with a man, I'll knock you out, boy. I'll knock you silly.
Tony.
Yeah. Go with us where we're going.
Come on. You don't know what the story is.
I don't care what the story is. No one's heard a baby.
Yeah. And I'm
Keep looking at me and show me what you did to that lady.
Keep it quiet.
Yeah, I can see exactly what you did. Maybe you'll get videotaped too and get all over the news.
Now, folks, I know that every red-blooded American male there in that same situation would probably do the same thing if he saw the abuse of a woman and her child there. And this man's wife was sitting there with him, and I could hear Jane saying to me what this wife was saying to him, honey, Richard, leave it alone, honey, leave it alone. But this guy's blood was boiling over what he was saying, and it's going to take you being outraged about the treatment that we're getting from people who work for us that's going to correct all of this. 320-5335, 318-320-5335 is the number to call. I'll be very happy to talk to any of you. Richard, thank you for listening. Thank you for calling. What's on your mind, friend?
Yeah, I have a first-hand horrifying experience for you.
Go ahead.
I was on a flight to American Airlines to Dallas, Texas, flying to Corpus Christi.
Yeah.
And we backed out of the gate. We got ready to work our way towards the holding area just before you enter the runway.
Mm-hmm.
And the pilots failed to start one of the engines.
Wow.
And they had already settled the crew and the cab down and literally went down the runway with one engine not running.
Wow.
Because I was sitting in front of it.
Wow.
When the pilot said we're cleared for immediate takeoff, throttled up, crossed the hold line onto the runway, I buzzed the stewardess. She comes running back and looks at you like, what? And throws her hands out. And I point, and not to panic the cabin, I pointed to the engine and rotated my hand and shaking my head, no.
Wow.
Not running. She came closer, looked out the window, and ran to what I called a priority pace to the front of the plane. We were already rolling halfway, a third of the way down the runway.
Wow.
That engine went from a cold start to a full throttle.
Wow. Wow.
I wrote down on a magazine what was happening, time, because I didn't think we were going to make it.
And you very well would not have made that takeoff if that plane, if he tried to throttle up on that plane, not knowing. How could he? But it's weird, Richard. How could he not know?
That's the point, CL. The attitude, and then we're not done yet. The flight recorder, records the last 30 minutes.
Yeah.
It just happened to be a 32-minute flight to Corpus Christi.
Yeah.
When we got up there, they didn't even want to look me in the eye. They're standing at the cabin, both stewardesses, both the co-pilot and the pilot, and the lady kind of covers her mouth and points to me. The stewardess points to me, and I see her. It's kind of obvious. She's standing by the door, and I walk up to them, and they just said, "Thank you for flying American." And I looked at him and cold in the eye and said, "Interesting takeoff, wasn't it?"
Wow.
I
Richard.
went to the supervisor out there at the gate, and I told him I wanted to make a complaint that somebody needed to look at those pilots.
Yeah.
And they blew me off, CL.
Wow.
The next 2 days later, I called the chief pilot for American Airlines to show my concern in a conservative manner, and he tried to blow me off by telling me I didn't know, I couldn't recognize an engine spinning. Okay?
Oh,
Now,
yeah.
you know what
Oh,
I-
yeah. Yeah. You
And
listen. So we're that kind of an idiot. We're really. They really think we're that stupid.
I told him I was trying to figure out what they were going to do about it. I said, "You already know my name." I said, "You can verify my seat with the roster. You know who the pilots are. You got a problem that needs to be fixed." And I said, "I'm ready to call the FAA hotline and register a complaint." His deal to me was, "You don't want to do that. You want to be careful if you make false accusations."
Wow.
I said, "A witness is not false accusation."
He actually threatened you.
Take it for what the attitude demonstrated, Phil.
Wow.
I learned from the FAA. I called and said, "I don't want to raise an unnecessary concern, but I don't know if it's a violation or what it would be considered." And all they said was, "Are you raising a complaint or not?" And I said, "Well, I'm trying to figure out if I need to." And, today, several years later, I should have done it and made a complaint.
And you know what? It's going to take that type of action, Richard, in order to straighten this whole thing out. And that's what the progressives, that's what this whole thing is, that's what they're fighting us over, because there are many of us who really want to see this straightened out, this attitude straightened out toward the American people. Richard, I got to go right there, but thank you so much for sharing that with me.
Thank you very much.
And folks, he's right. They want to turn that around and make it appear that you're the one who don't know what you're talking about when you point out that could have been a fatal. Oh my God. And I wonder how they would have written that up. That could have been a fatal error on the part of the airline. Be back to talk more in just a minute. CL. Monday. Hey, we're headed for that home stretch of the Monday show. It sure has gone by quick, and I have enjoyed. Always like talking to any of you. I appreciate it when you call in and talk to me. I certainly do appreciate it when you sound off and show just how concerned you are about getting this thing straight. Always like it. Now, as I was saying, Obama has, for the first time since his presidency ended 95 days ago, he showed up on the college campus of University of Chicago. His topic: community organizing. Time to organize. There's no real plan that he presented as far as saving the Democrat Party from itself, because it is truly self-destructing. But I do believe, and I'm going to share this with you. I think this is the Democrat Party game plan. The game plan for the Democrat Party is to hope that the Republicans save them from themselves, because the Republicans are famous for that. Historically, we have saved the Democrats from themselves at least 2 presidential election cycles. We actually saved the Republican Party from themselves in this last presidential cycle. However, it did turn out to be not a good old boy establishment Republican who won the presidency. And believe me, that is the only thing, and I believe he is the only candidate, even though he was not my first choice as President of the United States, as all of you know. He was not my first choice, but I do believe even he has turned out to be, I think, as far as the grand scheme is concerned, the big picture is concerned, I believe he is probably going to turn out to be a better choice than the one that I made. Because I think there's a certain shaking up, a certain wrecking ball mentality that is going on, that is stirring the pot in ways that the pot needed to be stirred and had not been stirred in quite some time. There's too much sediment that has settled on the bottom of the swamp floor. And it is time to drain the swamp and do something different, and at least try something different, We've been doing the same thing with the same old candidates from both parties, over and over again. Even though Obama was a fresh, new Democrat voice, he was still the same old thing as the Democrats have always put up. He was Bill Clinton. Yes, he was. He was definitely Jimmy Carter. So it was the same old, same old. John McCain was the same old Republican. Mitt Romney was the same old Republican. Only Reagan broke that trend. But then you became the same old, same old. And I think we have something that's Reagan-esque happening right now, and having the same effect and the same reception that Reagan had when he became president. No, I am not saying Trump's going to be Reagan, but there's a lot of similarities that's happening here in these first 100 days of his presidency. Now, folks, I was saying to you that there is a war that has been launched against the poor in this country, and has been launched against the poor for at least 60 years. The war on poverty has led us to all these types of regulations that we are seeing emerge as we speak. Earlier, I think it was Jim, we heard about Dow Corporation and how they were poisoning the Saginaw River up there in Michigan. We know that big corporations do that. They have done it. And, of course, cleaning up the air, cleaning up our environment is a good thing, because we are stewards of this environment. We are to protect it, and it is unforgivable to poison people, children, with chemical waste. But when that turns into a mantra to promote regulations that will curtail or capture and control the use of coal and energy like that. It is a part, I believe, of a scheme, a grand one, to actually hurt poor people. When you regulate energy like coal where electricity comes from, then the prices, as Obama said, by necessity go up. Now, who's harmed when the prices of warming and being warm and cooling, who's harmed when those prices go up like that? The poor. Who's harmed when gasoline prices are regulated in such a way that the price of gasoline goes up? The poor. Who's harmed when they're trying to save some smelt out in California or some desert rat in California, and the farmers there can't produce the type of crops that is necessary, or anywhere in the United States where regulations, environmental regulations, raise the cost of food? Who's harmed when that is instituted? The poor. All of us complain about it because nobody wants to pay more for food that's necessary. Nobody wants to pay more for gas than necessary. Jane and I both drive large cars. Why? Because we like them and we want to drive them. And so when you pull up to the pump and gas has gone up, yeah, we may have to fork out a little bit more money, but we're going to be able to fork it out because I work hard. But there are also other people who do work hard as well, but they're never going to be able to afford it if you price them out of range. So it hurts the poor. I believe that it is necessary to look at why they want to hurt the poor. We're going to talk about it when I come back.
Do you remember back in 1966? Country Jesus, hillbilly blues, that's where I learned my lick. From coast to coast and line to line to every county there. I'm talking about that outlaw X's cutting through the air. Anywhere, y'all, everywhere, y'all. I heard it on the X.
Yeah. 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 There is a war that has been declared for a long time on the poor. When regulations on energy go up, it hurts the poor because it costs more to heat and cool your home. That hurts the poor. When regulations cause food prices to go up, that hurts the poor. When regulations on gas at the pump goes up, it hurts the poor. Why is there, in my estimation, such a move to hurt the poor? Well, I've been saying this for a long time now, and I might as well say it again. Because there is a design to maintain a need for government to continue in dictating and using its heavy hand tactics to keep a certain group of people, red, yellow, black, or white, doesn't matter what color they are. So let's get on past that. But it is necessary to keep a certain class warfare launched and going on so that there is a need for large government, for big government. Big government is not the friend of the working man. It is not. And this nation was never designed for that type of model. It has not worked. It will not work. Yes, there are times when government should play a role, and that is to keep us safe and keep the infrastructure working. Government should do that. They do a good job at it. Our military, they do a good job at that. When they want to, they can fix stuff when they want to. But other than that, as I was saying in last week to you, that the American dream consists of simple things, very simple things. And one of them, or three of them, is the ability to keep your family safe, warm, dry, and fed. That's the American dream. But now, if government is regulating how, and hey, if government regulates how, you're going to keep them safe by controlling your guns. If they're going to regulate how you keep them fed, or if you can feed them at all because of the price of food being so high, now you have to apply for food stamps because they've regulated big business out of business. They regulated big business out of business. So now you're depending upon them to feed you through the food stamps. And the housing regulations. They're now regulating and dictating housing. Once big government has all of those things, including your health care, hey, there's not much of a republic there. No, it turns into a state of tyranny where you now have these overseers who are there to tell you what you can and can't do. Thus, you have folks in Pennsylvania, where I was over the weekend in Philly, it's a suburb of Philly, Levittstown, saying that they won't let us put people in office who oppose them. I was stunned. I was stunned that they were laying down for it. They were passive for it. But I built a fire under them. That's what I do. I built a fire under them, and I told them that it is time now to march on City Hall. It is time now to march on the school board. And there is one thing that we as conservatives, Republicans, fiscal conservatives in particular, must now do. And I know that it's not a part of our DNA. It's not a part of our makeup. We are very much live and let live, regardless of what the progressive liberals say about us. as most conservatives that I know, most Republicans that I know, we're not in the business of agitating. We're not. Why? Because we don't have time. We're trying to make the American dream a reality. We're busy doing that, and that means you have to apply yourself to some kind of gainful employment. So you don't have time for a lot of agitation. You just have time to work. Whereas on the other side of that coin, you have very wealthy people like George Soros who actually pay people to agitate. We do it in our spare time. But I think it's going to have to be a part of what we do most of the time as far as keeping the message of we're not going to take this anymore going. And I think what I'm going to have to do, I normally don't do this in my hometown because, I just, do it